lovely friends, it's Margaret, and it is time for another 5 Reasons Why. For those of you that are new to this series, 5 Reasons Why is where I tell you 5 reasons that you should read a book that are not the romance. Because you know, if I like a book, I'm probably pretty into the romance. Today, we are going to be talking about 5 reasons why you should read Pride and Prejudice that is not the angsty romance between two people who wouldn't know what was good for them if it bit them in the ass. If you couldn't tell, I have a very decided opinion about how ridiculous both Lizzie and Darcy are. So Pride and Prejudice is about the Bennett family, and the Bennett family is in a bit of a pickle because they have 5 daughters and no sons, and their estate is entailed away to the nearest living male relative. So all of these girls need to get married or they are going to find themselves out on the streets, basically. When an eligible young bachelor moves into the neighborhood, Mrs. Bennett decides that he is going to marry one of her girls, even if it kills her. Unfortunately for Mrs. Bennett, her family is a little bit ridiculous and not exactly the family that up-and-coming young gentleman would want to be associating with himself with, so when some of this gentleman's friends get involved, it causes problems for the family. This is mostly about the second oldest sister, Elizabeth Bennett, and the way she clashes with Mr. Darcy, which is the eligible young gentleman's friend. They just have issues and don't get along, and it's about them having to learn to look at other people differently. The first reason that I want to recommend Pride and Prejudice and Jane Austen's works in general is the humor. She does such a great job with this very witty, tongue-in-cheek style of humor. It's very understated, very subtle. It's dry, but observant. Like, it makes you take a step back from the situations that are happening in the book and look at them slightly different, because she's poking fun at a lot of people, but mostly she's poking fun at the societal rules of the Regency period of England. I just really appreciate how she uses humor to bring things to the forefront of the narrative and to also highlight things that maybe not be an important part of the story, but there's still something that she's like, hey, have you ever thought about this? The second reason that I love Pride and Prejudice is the amount of character growth that happens. Now, it can be said that there are some characters who do not grow at all, and I have issues with that. Most people, when they are talking about the amazing character growth that is in Pride and Prejudice, they're talking about Mr. Darcy, because he definitely has a redemption arc throughout the novel. I really do like that arc. I really do appreciate it, because I do feel like we don't see a lot of narratives where guys will admit they're wrong and actually do the work to fix that. We just kind of don't see. We see the apology and then maybe something happens. Maybe. But what I really love is the fact that it's not just Darcy growing in this particular narrative. Elizabeth also does some growing of her own. They both have their issues. He struggles with pride. She struggles with prejudice. They both have to sit back and go, you know, maybe some of how I have been interacting with people and viewing the world, maybe some of that needs some thought. Maybe I need to consider my reaction to this person. It's not necessarily that the other person has changed that they work, but that they have sat back and actually taken the time to see the other person as a full human being and kind of understand why they are the way they are and come to appreciate the things about them that maybe weren't their favorite thing at the beginning. I know that's really close to saying talking about the romance, but like their character arcs in general. We don't see as much of Mr. Darcy's, but we see a lot of Elizabeth's, and I really appreciate that. Number 3 is writing style. I absolutely adore Jane Austen's writing style. Just the way, even when it's not just the humor plays into that, but I love how she describes things. I love how she kind of paints a picture in your mind. I also love how she works backstory into the action. Like, she makes the backstory important. She will tease you with it and then be like, oh, you want to know more about this? What's going on here? I will tell you now. Sometimes you have to wait the entire book. Sometimes you only have to wait like a paragraph or a few pages. But I love how she incorporates it as part of the action. It's not just like, here's a whole bunch of backstory right here in this chunk. It's, here's a little tidbit of backstory. Here's a little tidbit of backstory. Here's something here. She just does such a good job of working it into the narrative of her books. The fourth reason that I love Pride and Prejudice is it is kind of feminist. In all of her books, Jane Austen kind of goes into the treatment of women and how women are their place in society and how they are expected to react. She has a lot to say about what is considered to be the height of womanhood in Regency England, and the fact that, you know, it's kind of hard to find that person. And number 5 is the strong family bonds. I do want to say that there is a particular scene in Pride and Prejudice that I want to say it's not a romantic scene. What? Maybe it sort of has to do with the romance, but like, it's not a romantic scene. It is not a scene between Elizabeth and Darcy, but there is one scene that I really wanted to put as number 5, but that scene is a spoiler, so I'm not. But if you've read the book, number 5 is actually that scene where Elizabeth tells someone off. It's not Mr. Darcy. So back to the Bennett family. I love how they work. They are not a perfect family. I love that there are flaws. I love the relationship between Lizzie and Jane. I would have loved to have that kind of relationship with a sister if I had had a sister. That would have been nice, but I got my brother, and I guess I won't complain about that. He's pretty cool too. I love how even when they are ridiculous, they still love each other. Some of my favorite adaptations of Pride and Prejudice kind of point out that even though maybe Mr. and Mrs. Bennett don't always get along as well as they could, there's still some affection between them. I also really like the versions that are kind of pointing out the fact that Mrs. Bennett is actually kind of right for how silly and ridiculous she is. She should be worried about this thing. I also like the fact that the family antics in this novel are top notch. They're ridiculous, and you just kind of look at this family, and sometimes they are a complete and total train wreck, because obviously Lydia exists. The Bennett family is just always fun to read about, even when some of them make you very angry and like you want to lock them in their room. So those are 5 reasons why you should read Pride and Prejudice that are not the romance. Let me know down in the comments, have you read Pride and Prejudice? Is it on your TBR? Do you want to read it? Have you seen the movies? The movies count, guys, especially if it's the BBC version, because that's basically the book. Like, you could read the book in the amount of time it takes to watch those movies. So you might as well just do it because it's good and it has Colin Firth in it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, I'll have other videos over here, other reviews I've done, just in case you want to see some more about what's going on my channel. That is it for now, my friends. Happy reading, and I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!